Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I've read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is the founder of Montreal Financial and helping solopreneurs go from financial uncertainty to financial confidence. No other than Miss Ronika Khanna. W-
Hello.
welcome to Book 101, Miss Ronika. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Certainly. And so, as mentioned, my name is Ronika Khanna. I'm a CPA in Canada, a CFA, and the founder of Montreal Financial. And so, I started my career as an accountant. And I worked in industry. I moved to Bermuda for a little while, spent a few years there, came back to Montreal, which is where I'm from. And one day I just decided that I wanted to do my own thing. And so I wanted to be a small business owner for small business owners. And so I quit my job and I started learning everything that I needed to know for accounting and finance relating to small businesses. And this was about 15 years ago, and it's been great. So I've helped a number of solopreneurs, self-employed people, small business owners with their accounting and finance. And then during COVID, I, like many people, I had a lot of time on my hands. So I wrote some books, some guides for small business owners. And then I decided I really liked the educational side of helping small business owners. So I decided to pivot my business. And so now what I do is I really provide educational resources. So I have a YouTube channel, and I have my blog, and I have a newsletter, etc. And then I have some paid resources like my books and courses and consulting. And it's a great way to help business owners directly. And my goal is to just help them feel less stressed, less overwhelmed, and more empowered with their businesses.
Miss Ronika Khanna, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And today, let's talk about what every solopreneur needs to know about business finances. What is the biggest financial misconception solopreneurs have when starting out?
Okay, so there are a couple, and one of them is that I think, and I deal a lot with limiting money beliefs with respect to people in business, right? And a lot of people don't think that they think they're not good with numbers, and totally understandable. But being good with your business numbers is just a question of being able to do relatively simple math. So I think everybody needs to, rather than outsourcing all of their accounting and finances to an accountant, should understand their numbers. This is really, really important. Just for you're starting a business, it's very gratifying to know what your numbers are, how you're doing, how much you're selling, how much profit you're making. All of that is kind of fun, right? But to put that money belief, to impose that upon yourself is again, it's limiting, and it isn't true, in my opinion, in most cases. I think most people can be good enough with numbers to understand their finances. And so, yeah, I would say that's probably the biggest one.
Ms. Khanna, how do you help solopreneurs overcome emotional blocks around money management?
So, uh, so what I do is I help. Essentially, my goal is to simplify. And so there's a lot of jargon around numbers. There's a lot of big words that are thrown out, but they kind of mean relatively simple things. So if people if I am able to explain that in simple language. And so, and when I started this enterprise, I started blogging, right, just to teach myself with some of these concepts. And and so I try and simplify them in my articles and help people realize that they don't have to be intimidated by them. And so, again, through the articles in the YouTube videos, you can see what your accounting and finance looks like for, as a solopreneur, and also the tax side of things. And tax is very scary to a lot of people, but it doesn't have to be. And there's some situations where tax is complex and people should certainly go to specialties, but to specialists. But there are a lot of more simple aspects of tax. And you too, you live in Canada, and you may have some understanding of what's involved in your tax obligations. And it really, again, isn't that difficult, but it's just a question of removing those, as you said, those blocks that it's too difficult. I can't understand this. And I mean, just based on the amount of educational resources that are out there, you see that a lot of people are really interested in understanding more. So what they need is some level of simplification, and that's what I do with, again, with all of my resources. And I try to speak to my audience in terms that they can understand, relate to, and feel just less overwhelmed by.
Why do so many solopreneurs avoid looking at their numbers, and how do they fix this or fix this?
Right. Okay. So I think they avoid it for the same reasons, which is they feel fear, right? That's at the core of all of this. You
Yes.
look at your numbers, you don't really understand. And I can relate to this in other aspects of my life. Like I look at sales copy and I feel fear because I don't know how to write sales copy very well. And obviously, again, something should be left to the experts. But for the most part, it's just a question of saying, no, 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 I've got this. Like I can understand the essential elements of what needs to be done, and more than the essential elements. You're not just doing this to so you can do something or save money or whatever. You're also doing it because it gives you so much data and an analysis about how your business is doing, because so it can literally improve your bottom line, it can improve your profitability. And so in order to fix this, my suggestion is to try and be self-aware that you're feeling fear, because you're not necessarily even self-aware that you're feeling it. You just go to, I don't want to do this. And then understand that you can wrap your head around these concepts, and then create processes and systems. I mean, you could choose to learn some new concepts every day. For a solopreneur, it's fairly straightforward, right? They need to have a system in place, and there's all kinds of software out there. Excel is great, right? A lot of people use spreadsheets well, or you can use accounting software, and accounting software simplifies it even more. So really, basically simplifies the entry of data. And what accounting software does is it takes that data and helps you analyze it in a way that it can be very meaningful for you, and that again can help you improve your business in a number of different ways.
Miss Veronica, what's your financial wake up call story that every solopreneur should hear?
Okay. Oh, that's that's a great question. Um, so, I mean, generally speaking, okay, so a lot of people come to me because they have some horror stories with their accountants, right? And so they seek me out, they look for, a consultation because they just want to talk through what happens. So what a lot of people do in my experience is they outsource all of their finances to an accountant. And for a lot of solopreneurs, this is just end of year taxes, right?
Yes.
And then sometimes what happens is the accountant goes MIA, the accountant ghosts them, or the accountant makes mistakes. And then they are caught, and maybe not right away, but a year or two later, Revenue Canada comes to them and says, yeah, you've made a mistake here, and you owe this amount of money plus interest and penalties. And when they try and contact their accountant, the accountant is, it's nowhere to be found. So accountants do make mistakes. Made my mistakes. But the way when I had clients in a practice, I always tried to involve my clients in it, right? So they understood their tax returns, they understood their accounting, they understood their profit and loss statement, how much they're making in sales, what their expenses are. And once you have you don't have to be an expert, but it isn't that hard to understand how your business is doing and what your approximate tax liability should be, or what are the things that you were responsible for, what are your deadlines. What in Canada, as you might know, we have GST and HST. This is a very important obligation that many people have. You have an income tax obligation, you might have payroll, you might have other. So just being aware of these is really important, and understanding the basics is really important.
Very well said, Miss Ronika. Very well said and inspiring. How can a solopreneur balance growth, ambitions, and financial reality?
Sorry, how can they balance? What was the first part?
Yes, how can solopreneurs balance growth, ambitions with financial reality?
Right, yes. And so another great question. And so ideally, as a solopreneur, you are growing your business, right? And so, and this comes with additional financial burdens and complications potentially. But again, at a certain point, I think in the early stages of your business, especially if you have time, if you're not super busy, which a lot of solopreneurs in the early stages aren't, can handle the bulk of their own finances, if not all of them. It depends on the person in question. As you start to grow, it might make more sense to outsource some of that. So first of all, you might have to take on some employees, right? Just for your business itself, not necessarily even the finance part, but taking on employees is an important part of growing your business. And again, it's not, once you know the rules around, a lot of people who come to me, they're very intimidated. They're like, oh, I don't know how to hire employees. And it's really, again, not that difficult. There's services, certainly in Canada, I'm sure in the US, where you can just outsource all of that, the payment of the deductions for employees. And in addition to that, accounting at a certain point, like there's not that much value in doing your own accounting if your time can be more valuably spent working on your business. And so, in that case, it might make sense to outsource the bookkeeping, which is separate from the year end accounting, which are the taxes and stuff like that. So, that is certainly something to think about. But growth is very exciting, and regardless of what you do or do not outsource, I think it is still very important to be reviewing your financial statements, your profit and loss, etc., your sales, how you're doing, so you at least keep that control of your finances, and anyone who you're outsourcing it to, you understand what they are doing for you.
Let's talk about the essential financial skills. What are the three financial metrics should solopreneurs track weekly or monthly?
Okay, so in terms of what they should be tracking, weekly or monthly? So first of all, and I'm glad you said that, I think it's a really good idea to in your calendar to have a, schedule like one of my clients, she calls it a money date, right? So you have to an hour or 2 hours blocked out once a week, maybe once a month, right? I mean, once a week is probably better. And in that, what you want to be looking at are, I mean, first of all, your profit and loss is super important. Potentially the most important reflection of how your business is doing. So you've got your sales, you have your expenses, how much you are selling, and what it's costing you, and what your profit is, and are you profitable, right? Second of all, I think it's really important to track your cash flow. And so this is, cash flow is not the same as profit. And the reason that is, so you could be very profitable, but have not, you don't necessarily have that much cash coming in because it's possible that your customers owe you money, right? And if your customers owe you money, that cash hasn't actually hit your bank account, or you owe your suppliers money, or you've gotten a loan from a bank. There's all kinds of reasons that profit and cash flow don't necessarily mesh together. But whereas profit is important, if you don't have enough cash flow to run your business in the short term or the long term, there's profitable businesses that have gone out of business because they didn't have enough cash coming in. So keeping track of that for some businesses is very important, especially if you're a product-based business. If you're a service-based business, your expenses tend to be lower, so it's not a huge deal. And one of the other things that I would track is you would want to analyze some of the metrics. You want to determine what the most important metrics are for your business, right? So for my business, for example, I might want to see how many courses I sold this year, this month versus last month, right? What percentage of people who come to my website actually buy courses, right? So you determine what these metrics are, the ones that are driving your profitability, and then those are the ones that you focus on improving. And you can take a couple of them. You don't have to take that many, but if you're able to define what they are, you can really identify what moves the needle in your business.
Miss Ronika, as the founder and helping solopreneurs, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Um, Another great question. It's always easier to talk about other people than it is about yourself.
Yes.
Okay, so right now my short-term goal is I'm in the process of creating a membership for my audience, and this is essentially geared towards helping them feel less overwhelmed, helping them simplify their finances, having a space to come to when they have questions. Because a lot of us have questions, we get stuck, and then if we don't get an answer to the question, you just tend to just stop, right? So I want to help people get unstuck. I want to help people feel more financially confident. And so that's what this membership is going to hopefully do. I'm working on it, and over time, I'm going to try and refine it. And so, in the long term, I guess it's going to be. I want to be in a place where, again, like people come to me for exactly that reason, where they feel that they are financially confident. So it's an extension of the short-term goal where I have, a number of people and I build a community of like-minded people who can come together, discuss their issues, and feel more empowered, particularly in relation to their finances, and help to conquer those limiting money beliefs.
Good luck to your goals, Miss Veronica, and looking forward for more success. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to
Thank
be
you.
like you?
Ah, well, I think. Yeah. If you so if you want to like what are the main qualities? And I have thought about this actually in the past in relation to starting your own business. Anybody who starts their own business is a risk taker, right? By definition, more of a risk taker than someone who works as an employee who has a lot of other great qualities, but they're not necessarily interested in taking risks. So that distinguishes you right away, right? As someone who is interested in kind of doing their own thing. You're entrepreneurial, right? So if you're a small business owner, you are, whether it's, in small ways or big ways, you are certainly an entrepreneur. And so the two qualities that have really helped are patience, because a lot of there's statistics around this, but the majority of small businesses fail within the first 3 years. I think it's something like that. And every year, right, like more businesses fail. And so but often you leave too soon, right? And so if you are able, and as long as your finances aren't constrained, then sometimes it just takes time for all of your efforts to come to fruition. And a lot of small business owners work really, really hard and they see no results, right? They're posting on YouTube or they are sending out, emails to people. They have a newsletter and there's just very little progress, but it just happens one day. It just starts to happen and then it starts to snowball. So that's kind of my motivational advice on the patient side, is that it is really, really important to be patient. Put the work in. You have to put, if you don't put the work in, then chances are it's harder for something to happen. But if you are putting the work in, give it some time to see results, because they don't happen overnight. And the other thing that has really, really helped me is taking opportunities where you see them, right? And sometimes an opportunity is very like fuzzy, right? You're like, you don't even necessarily see it as one, but you just do it. Even though you might not know where it's going to take you, you just do it and see where it does take you, right? So you're always looking for opportunities that, again, may be tangential to your business, but may have really positive consequences in ways that you can't actually foresee.
Thank you for that advice, Miss Ronika. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Absolutely. So I have a couple of books. I have two books, both of which are huge bestsellers. So many of your audiences probably heard about them. The first one is called The E Myth Revisited, I believe. And
Yes.
so, the E Myth is just this great. I read it like a long time, just when I was starting my business. And essentially, what it says, it's often for businesses that are larger, and it actually fits sort of like the McDonald's franchise model. And in the sense that what it says at its core, it says you need to build systems and processes in your business. And so, how this translates for a solopreneur is what even solopreneurs who don't have employees, who don't have a team, or whether you do or you don't, you determine what it is in your business that you do frequently all the time, right? So you might just, it might be as simple as sending the same kind of email, regularly, right? So you create a process around that. Maybe you save that, email in a Notion document or Word document or whatever, and then you just copy and paste it and whatever, and then that's a process that you've put into place. And of course that's very simple, but doing this for a lot of, evaluating, first of all, what you do regularly and often the same of or something that's similar, and creating a process around it can help you save so much time and mental bandwidth, and it leaves you with more time to work on your business rather than in your business. And sort of that's the tagline of this book, where you're not just putting out fires, you're not just responding to emails, you're actually thinking about what direction your business is going in. And the second book is Atomic Habits, another massive bestseller. And I absolutely love the idea of this. It's just creating habits around things. because it's much easier than trying to be disciplined or being goal oriented, which everyone should be goal oriented. That's not what I'm saying. But by building little habits, they tend to compound over time. And once they compound, you start to see real results. So I love the idea of just starting with one little habit, something you can just start doing tomorrow. You incorporate it into your life, and then you move on to the next thing. And with respect to your business or even personally.
Thank you for that recommended books, Miss Ronika. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please to listen to my other podcast, people, my other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well, geography 101 and third season or fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love Letters in third season, and Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first
That
season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Miss Veronica, if solopreneurs could only focus on one financial priority this year, what should it be?
Okay, well, so this is not something I haven't mentioned, and I think the one thing that a very frequent piece of advice that I give to solopreneurs is to separate their personal and business finances. And there are so many solopreneurs out there who use their personal bank account to receive, their payments from their, and so this just confuses everything for them, and it's just mentally confusing. So I highly recommend that everybody set up a separate bank account, separate credit card, whatever they need to separate their finances, and all of the other stuff starts, everything else that I spoke about starts to fall into place.
Miss Ronika Khanna, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you
It's my,
please? Yes. So,
it's
can
my
you please?
pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Yes. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your business, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, everything that I'm doing starts on montrealfinancial.ca. So you can come visit me there, and you'll see all of my resources, my blog posts. You can book a consultation. You can check out my other resources there, and membership coming soon. So hopefully
Yes.
that should be helpful.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Ronika Khanna because if you support her, for sure, more and more and more empowering advocacy to come, more and more empowering business to come. So, Miss Veronica, thank you so much for your time.
And my pleasure. Thanks, Daniel.
More to come, people. See you soon.